Hi Pisces, welcome to your December 2016 General Tarotscope. It's Rena here, and I'm shuffling the cards. As I do so, I want to tell you about a few transits that are occurring that are occurring in December, okay? So one of them is, we're talking about a concentration of energy in December for you would be in the sign of Capricorn, because on the 2nd, Mercury goes into that house. Now, for you, Capricorn is your 11th house of hopes and wishes. So this can be, I feel like this could be a very kismet time of the year for you. In other words, like this serendipitous, fated in a good way type of time for Pisces. Because what the hell was that? You have the sun going into Capricorn on the 21st. That's your 11th house. You have Mercury earlier going there on the 2nd of the month. Mercury will be retrograding in that house on the 19th. And you have a new moon there on the 29th. So you have these constant triggers in that 11th house of hopes and wishes, friends and groups. You also have there's, I think, Venus. Yeah, Venus is there for the first week of the month. And then on the 7th, Venus goes into your 12th house in Aquarius. Now, Mars is going to be in your 12th house for a lot of the month. And then on the 19th, it's going to go into your first house of the self in your own sign, okay? So while Mars is in the 12th house, Pisces, Neptune, that rules the 12th house. So you're going to maybe feel a little bit hamstrung. You may be kind of like having a lot of energy and not knowing how to kind of express it, because there may be this feeling of constriction. I don't know how else to put it, because Mars is very active, even physically. And the 12th house is an internal house. It's very spiritual, but also psychological on a deep level, and unconsciously psychological. So it's not something where you're really just working through stuff that that you have to deal with. The 12th house is the house of dreams. So sometimes these revelations that you are, going through various things are happening through psychic, avenues. Like you might have a sudden insight or even a spiritual experience or a dream that kind of highlights for you what you need to do. So it can be very hard to put your finger on a lot of the issues of the 12th house. And Mars is a planet that likes to get things going. Mars is not interested in sitting and gazing at its navel all day. So that may feel a little bit frustrating, but within a matter of weeks, you're going to have Mars in your sign. And this is kind of like a prelude to you having your solar year begin, because you're starting to have some of these planets in the 12th house. Another thing about Mars in the 12th is it can make you feel kind of dragged down. What's the thing? Run down. Okay? You may feel a little bit draggy. You may not have the energy that you're used to. And then when it goes into your sign on the 19th, you may be a little bit more peppy. I did want to say that we are having a Mercury retrograde on the 19th, and so that's going to be in your 11th house of hopes and wishes. And I think it's going to be eventually going back into your 10th house, maybe even very quickly after that, because it retrogrades in a very early degree of Capricorn. So for 11th house matters, it retrograding, you may rethink some of your goals. And then when it goes into the 10th house, it may affect any communications you have with employers. Like you may be, in contact with them, and then all of a sudden it hits a wall or something. And just realize if that does happen, that it's just temporary. I've experienced that myself, where something, seemed to come to a grinding halt during Mercury retrograde, and then it kind of like goes back. And knowing these transits is very helpful for navigating that, because then you don't get as frustrated, because you don't feel like you're kind of like fumbling around in the dark. Now, obviously, this is a general reading, Pisces, so the actual dates of the transits may be a little bit different for some of you than others because of your degree of sun or rising sign. Some of these transits may occur for you at different times than what I'm saying, but everybody goes through the transits. It's just that they hit them at different times. And even within one sign, not everybody is born at 0 degrees of Pisces. So it's going to depend on what degree you're born under. So the other transit that I wanted to tell you about is that, now I wanted to say something about Venus. Venus is going to be in Capricorn for that first week in the 11th house. So I feel that could be lucky for you, because Venus can bring money, and the 11th house can be your dreams. So you may get money to be able to make a dream of yours come true. And you're also having that new moon, a new beginning with this sector at the end of the month. So that may be kind of a 1-2 punch. As I say, Venus will only be in this house for the first week. Then Venus goes into your 12th house, and that is the house of the past lives, conscious mind. You may meet somebody from a past life, and when Mercury goes retrograde, you may hear from people from your past. Now, I don't know about past lives, but definitely the past. But with it being in the 12th house, Venus, who knows, maybe it is from a past life. Venus in the 12th can be good for artists, because it can give you like that certain inspiration that really is just very, otherworldly, really. I mean, no better way of putting it. And, that is your house. So it's something that is very comfortable for you to have these planets in the 12th house, whereas normally it might feel a little bit uncomfortable. I think most Pisces can deal with it a lot easier. On the 13th of December, there is a full moon in your 4th house of home and family. Okay, so in the sign of Gemini. So what this can mean is that you find out something about your family. Your parents. Maybe you sell a house, because that can be your property. Okay? And you're closing on a house. Or is closing when you sell, when you buy. Maybe I was thinking of, I really mean selling a house. And maybe it has something to do with starting a family. Maybe you add to it, because the full moon can bring something to fruition. So maybe giving birth is possible for some Pisceans. I always think of the full moon as abundant, and it's considered the most powerful of the, these kinds of, the moons, the full moon time, very magical time. So that's an interesting house for it to go into. So now I will start the reading. Okay. The overall theme is the Hierophant. So this is a card of tradition. It can be higher learning. It can be marriage. All the institutions that make up our world. But it can be about seeing this, about being involved in the spiritual side of things more than the mundane, for whatever reason. And some people may have been in a situation, maybe you were kind of going away from your spiritual life for whatever reason. Sometimes Pisces do that because they are very psychic and they don't like that. Maybe it scares them, or they, were chastised for it when they were children. A lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot, but some people with psychic ability, not just Pisces, but I know Edgar Cayce, who was a Pisces, had this happen because he was raised in the Bible Belt, and he talked to dead relatives, and his family didn't like that. They didn't think that was okay. They didn't think it was kosher. So when people don't understand that kind of thing, they can think there's something wrong with it, and they can make the child shy away from it and kind of even push it down to the point where you kind of almost lose the conscious ability to do that. But maybe you're starting to get back into that. For some of you, you may be doing something along spiritual lines. Maybe you're taking a religious course, or I should say, a divinity degree, or maybe you're starting to be a yoga teacher, something that relates to spirituality, that you're taking some kind of a course. For some people, you are thinking of getting married even. In the past position, we have the Five of Pentacles. So this is a card of feeling a sense of lack. With the Hierophant in the present position. This is, because sometimes the Five of Pentacles can relate to being too materialistic instead of, seeing that there's a spiritual side to life. And so when people are being materialistic, it's easier to get into a mental state of ingratitude because everything is dollars and cents. So if you don't feel like you're making the kind of money to lead a certain lifestyle, then you can just write off your whole life and not see the spiritual value in it. So there's a lot of, kind of philosophical things. And sure enough, what's coming in during this time period is the Four of Swords, which is about rest and rejuvenation. So with Mars in the 12th house, and Venus is going in there, it's, so I guess they will both be, Venus and Mars will both be in that house. I suppose it will. And then Mars goes into your first house on the 19th. I'll have to double check that. I think that's correct. So there's a lot of emphasis on that 12th house as well. So it's a time when you probably aren't going to feel, at least for a good portion of the month, that you're not going to feel energetic anyway. This is about recharging your batteries. But I think on a deeper level, it's about reflecting on your life. And maybe not being as outwardly social. Maybe just kind of going within in order to really, make sense of what has been going on in your life. And that's always a good thing, I think. I think that's a wonderful thing. For people that... let me just talk about signs connected to this. You may be involved with a Taurus individual. This Taurus person may have been problematic. The Pentacles relate to earth signs. Unless in the past you were with another earth sign, so that would be, if it wasn't a Taurus, it would be a Virgo or Capricorn. But you may decide that you want to, spend some time alone. Maybe you don't want to get married. Or maybe this is about, should I stay married? Should I, For some of you, you might be saying, I don't know if it's the right thing to do because my religion tells me that divorce is wrong. And it's about conformity. The Hierophant may be you reflecting on that. Like, is this a bad thing? One of the things that I really feel is important is that when you enter into things and when you go out of them, that you always realize the symbolic nature versus the actual nature of whatever it is that you're doing. When someone gets divorced, if they believe that now I'm married, now I'm divorced, these are really, to me, just words, okay, concepts. They're not really what's happening. You can be legally married and have no connection. Both people could be cheating. You could maybe not even be living together, but you're legally married. So when you get divorced, is it that something magically has changed? People choose to get married for different reasons, and I'm not here to, ridicule people for getting married, but I would advise people to really think for themselves and say, if I'm not happy and I've tried to make something work, why is it evil for me to put an end to this? Now, if you're just being like selfish and you haven't tried and you really don't want to work on the relationship because you're just basically a self-centered person and maybe there are things that you need to change about yourself, but you're just like, tough, I don't want to, then maybe you are a bit of a jerk. But if you are sincere and it's really more a matter of, feeling as though the relationship has run its course, then I don't think you should agonize over it. And actually, the higher message is the Fool. So this is about going into the unknown. This may feel very uncomfortable even, but if you can look at it as an adventure, you have a better outlook on what's ahead of you. And, a lot of Taurus people, because I did Scorpio's reading today, a lot of fixed signs like Scorpio and Taurus and Leo and Aquarius have difficulty when it comes to change, because you are the preservers of the status quo, and I don't mean that in a bad way. You are the people who are very consistent. You endure. If everybody was like a cardinal sign, so that would be Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn, you would probably, reach for the divorce lawyer's phone number right away because they like to take action. You're more, you like to keep things as they are a lot of times. And this creates continuity in our world. But sometimes you take it to an extreme and it ends up being a negative, an overall negative for you. So it's just about, being able to let go when it's appropriate. And the higher message is the Fool card. So this is about, not worrying about the future and just being adventurous, Pisces, and seeing that and thinking that the universe has your back, that you don't have to worry about anything bad happening because of the choices that you make. And so sometimes you may fear the unknown, but know that it's really for the best, that you may need to do it to be able to move on with your life and to have the happiness that you deserve. By the way, for those people, I've been doing this reading as a love reading, pretty much. But for people, I feel like it is, in a way, a love reading because, but I will say that for people who are just looking for career advice, that, the Hierophant card could be you involved in the corporate life. And it's an organization, and there's conformity that's related to the corporate life. And maybe in the past position, you were feeling a sense of poverty consciousness that led you to gravitate towards a kind of job that, pays a lot, but maybe you feel this sense of just being a cog in the wheel. Like you don't really feel like you have a sense of individuality, and that was the conflict in all of that. Also, the Five of Pentacles can indicate perhaps that you attracted this job. Maybe this is your dream job, as I was speaking of when I was talking about, the transits with the 11th house. But I feel like you're going to be rethinking your career more than anything else. So with the Four of Swords, that might be you kind of taking a breather and rethinking your direction. And then the Fool card is just like you moving forward and trusting that everything is as it should be. The card that crosses you is the Wheel of Fortune, so I'm reading that as reversed. So there may be timing issues, maybe for some of you, especially because we're having a Mercury retrograde. So, it may be something where you get an offer, but it's during a Mercury retrograde. And definitely don't be silly if this is a good opportunity and you know that it's not just a kind of a pie in the sky deal. You'd probably be smart to take it, even if it's during Mercury retrograde. But be careful that there's misalignment happening, because it may be that certain things are going to work out for you, but not in the exact time that you think they will. Now, remember, in December there are a lot of holidays, so this may be one of those things where things are kind of pushed back into January or so. So don't be too dejected if something really was promising and then it seems like it's not panning out. It may come in later on, but maybe now it's kind of like it's off for you. You're not really, the Wheel of Fortune really isn't turning in your favor at the moment in some cases, but maybe it's right around the corner. The advice is the Ten of Swords. For personal relationships, this could be that there is something that needs to be totally, a chapter that needs to totally close. You may have had some kind of, like, even a betrayal that has left you feeling like you were stabbed in the back, figuratively speaking, of course. And that's something that you need to kind of get over, process, before you can move on. Maybe if you were thinking of getting married or anything along, committing to someone, well, particularly I would say with the Hierophant, getting married, something more official. The Ten of Swords may say that you're still kind of reeling from something, and maybe you need to really heal from that before you can truly commit to that new person. And the outcome is the Chariot card. So I feel like there's a victory at hand in whatever it is that you're trying to do, whether this is with work or your private life. But it's something that requires of you that you really focus and that you really kind of hone your energy in that direction. Perhaps you've been, you've had a lot of different distractions in December, and you can do this, whatever this is that you dream of doing, but you're probably going to have to really be one-pointed with whatever it is. So if there's a relationship, and there could be a Cancer involved because the Chariot is connected to Cancer. If this is a relationship, you may have to devote more time. Maybe that has been the culprit of why the relationship, the timing has been off. Maybe you just aren't spending enough time together. Or maybe you and that's why I say, when you're devoting that energy or that, attention to that situation, a lot of times people think that they can have something good happen in their life, but they don't invest any time in it. They just want it to happen, and it doesn't work that way. In order to have things happen that we want, we also have to really invest energy into them. And there's a, what's the saying? Our energy flows where our attention goes. And so if you're kind of like, pardon my language, pissing away your energy, frittering it away in a way that is not going to really give you that victory, that's the Chariot card, then you need to kind of cut those areas that are kind of taking away your attention for the productive things of life. So maybe you need to kind of really pare down your lifestyle in some ways. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this, Pisces. If you'd like a personal reading, I'm going to link my store below this video, my online store. Otherwise, have a great month of December. Bye.